Hello there, friends, and welcome back to another episode of Football Manager Therapy. I am, of course, your host, Rich Owens. Hello, how are you today? Don't you look nice? You really, really do. And speaking of looking nice, I'm joined by 2/3 of the FM team. Unfortunately, Spanner was thrown in the works by Jebaru's employers. He's off somewhere in Europe, just doing his best work. We miss him. We miss him terribly. Jeb, we'll see you soon. We love you very much. But we have got Kev Callum, so it could be significantly worse. Kev, the United City FM, how are you today, pal?
I'm doing well. I'm blown away by Callum's miming skills a second ago during the intro. To be honest, I couldn't concentrate on anything else. So congratulations on that, Callum. That's amazing.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. I'm good, mate. I'm really good. I'm happy to be here. Happy Sunday to you. I hope you're well yourself, my friend. Let's do a podcast, as we often say.
Let's absolutely record a podcast together. Yeah, I'm good. It's warm. It's the warmest day of the year so far, I think. Or it's a hot weekend regardless. I spent yesterday, just an exciting look behind the curtain, having my biannual kind of LAN party with some of my real life friends that live locally. And we always pick the nicest weekend of the year to do it. So, beautifully sunny outside, sun is blazing, perfect beer garden weather. We were sat in a basement playing video games, eating curry. So a day well spent. But the next hour is going to be well spent because I'm in the company of my friend, the Sunshine Kid, Callum. How are you, pal?
Hi,
Hello,
Rich, my rival for this evening. I am very good, thank you. I'm very good, thank you very much. I spent my day yesterday doing some gardening because we're having a party next week. So we thought, let's garden. I'm not very good at gardening.
No.
And when you give me one of those big things, it's electrical and it goes zzz at the end. Turns out I cut down too much, and I've made too many extreme changes to our garden, it would seem. So hopefully, fingers crossed, it grows back by next week. That's the hope. But the tree has certainly seen better days at the end of our garden. I'll be honest with you. But no, I am very good. I've had a lovely week, and I am always happy to be in the company of you two.
Oh, God bless you. Isn't it? It's a thing, though, isn't it? Which is really weird, considering all members of this podcast are 24. Like spending a day gardening just seems like a bit before your time. But no, I'm the same, mate. Gardening is not my forte.
It's not good.
No, not the one for me. Not the one for me. I don't understand it. I've still got a plastic lawn, and I'm pretty sure that's dying at the moment. So it's just... No, I'm terrible, absolutely terrible. But boys, we have got what has been a busy old week. We've been up to stuff. We have got a full dance card this afternoon of just FM things to have a wonderful old chat about, things to do. Or feel free, boogie on down, pal. For the audio listeners, Callum is dancing. But yeah, for FM wise, we have been up to some business this week. We might as well start with our weekly save update, and we're going to this man up there. It's Kev. How's the homeward bound journey going, pal?
Do we have to?
Contractually obliged, I'm afraid, mate. Contractually obliged.
Okay, fine. We'll do it. It went really, really well. Is that all you need? Okay,
yeah.
So
let's move on.
Oh, boys. So this is the third season in Hungary on my journey back home. I hope, please God, at some point get me home. But we are here in Hungary. But this is the season that I added in my training schedules to the whole setup because, of what we've been talking about over the last few weeks. So, of course, that's going to have a positive impact on a team that was already gearing towards a title. We were second favourites, I think, this season in the Hungarian top league with Puskás Academia. We started actually pretty well. Again, we got off to a very good start in the Europa Conference League, second season in a row that we actually made it into that league stage quite comfortably and looked like we could do something in it, which was good. So it got us off to a good start at the beginning of the season because that's when you play all those qualifying rounds, and it, if you do well, it boosts the morale and off you go into the league campaign. And we did. We started pretty well in the league campaign, got off to a reasonable start. if you remember the season before, we had that almighty crash with the injuries. I had like 5 injuries out my first team 11, not my squad, that just decimated me for 2 or 3 months. That didn't really happen this time round in the same way. So that was good. Training seemed to be working. I had 1 or 2 people complain that we weren't doing enough quickness training. I thought we'll just run faster then, for goodness sake. I mean, yo, Callum.
Kev, do you reckon you had less injuries because you'd set up your training schedule?
No. Maybe. I couldn't resist. What can I say? It's entirely possible. What I would say, we got quite a lot for a while. We got quite a lot of those little niggly 2-day injuries. So there were quite a few of them. So it wasn't necessarily that the injury number went down. It was probably the severity of some of them did. But they did come back towards the end of the season when my squad were a bit tired. We had 1 or 2 that lost their spot for the last 3 or 4 games in the run-in because of worse injuries, should I say. So, yeah, I think there's something in there that I think overall the general fitness and the training of my squad went pretty well. I managed to balance that most of the time through the season. We got most of my players through to the back end of the season to actually contribute, which is unheard of with me for the last couple of seasons. So that's good in itself. Again, midway through the season, there's that midwinter break in Hungary of about a month where nothing happens. And at that point, we were sitting pretty good in and around the top spot, a point or 2 in and around it. It wasn't, it was still close, but we were there. But this is what I've always said about the Hungarian league since I've been in it, is that ultimately everybody takes points off of everybody. It's really hard to get consistency in your team through the Hungarian league, and not many other teams manage it either. So there was a group of about 4 or 5 teams within the last sort of maybe 10 fixtures of the season that could potentially still do a number and maybe get to the top of the table. It was quite tight. And then it kind of went wrong again. I'd love it not to have, but it kind of went wrong again. Just after the midwinter break, we came out the back end of the transfer window. And I had made the decision going into this season number 3. It's important because if I don't win it this season, then I have to move sideways after having won the Hungarian league, not forward towards England. That's why the third season is so important. But the problem I had was I'd made the decision at the very beginning of the season. I was going all in on this one. So we probably spent a little bit too much money. We spent a little bit too much wages. We were always on the edge of the finances. It was a little bit kind of, are the board going to be happy with that? All that kind of stuff. And we got through to the midwinter break. We got through most of the transfer window. Didn't need to do anything. We were looking good. I didn't want to upset the apple cart at all. And then in the last couple of moments of the transfer window, my board sold my very, very, very good central defender from under me for 3.7 million that disappeared into the finances of the club, didn't give me enough transfer budget, didn't have enough wage budget to properly replace him. Went and had a look at loans, couldn't get a couple in that I was trying to, couldn't find any quality around there. Ultimately, I decided that what I had to do was I had 3 good rotating central defenders left in my squad. They could all play. I was happy with all of them. 2 of them were my first choice from last season, and they were the understudies this season. So I thought we're in an okay situation. So I had to ultimately leave it as it was. My 19-year-old went off and played for somebody else and had a very lovely time, I'm sure. And it just diminished my central defense a little bit. And it had an impact. It did. You know, results were just a little bit patchy again. We couldn't get the consistency. We went on a little bit of a run of losing a couple of games and drawing a couple of games against some of the lesser lights in the division that just made you think, that's not what we're looking for at this point. And then towards the run-in, where we were still in contention, we were only a few, like 3 or 4 points off the top spot. We were in about 3rd position. It was, anybody's game, really. We had a couple of games in hand on a couple of teams. So we were looking okay. But then the second of my two central defenders that had started the season as my first choice central defenders, having lost one of them to a transfer, the second one was one of those that picked up an injury for the remainder of the season. And I now had two central defenders that I was having to use for that little block of half a dozen games at the back end. And so 3 games in, they were completely knackered. And I had to rotate an anchor man in there occasionally for half a game, and I rotated a left fullback in there for half a game. And we just didn't have enough when for the last 5 or 6 matches of the season, we literally played every other team in the top 5 of the league to finish off the season. And we didn't manage it. We finished, I think, in about 3rd or 4th in the end. But it was, 2 or 3 points between 3 or 4 clubs behind Ferencváros, who ultimately won the league by about 6 or 7 in the end. They just managed to get that little way ahead of us. So we did fine. At the end of Friday's stream, we're now recording this on Sunday lunchtime, but on Friday's stream where we finished off the season, we did begin to ask ourselves at the end of it, is this the point where within Hungary, I now need to move jobs? Because I can't leave Hungary. I have to stay there until I win the league. But is there something? Could I go to Újpest or Honvéd or even Ferencváros if it were to become available for any weird reason? Is this now the time where Puskás Academia have pushed us as far as we can go and we can't quite get that last little bit? I'm not sure. We'll find that out, because now, of course, one of the other things that the guys on the podcast have been talking about over the last few weeks is I'm going to be doing more of the transfer window on stream than I've done before, because I want to play a broader version of the game. So on Monday, we'll come back and I'll have maybe moved it on a couple of weeks to get us through to June or something. But I've got no idea what's going to be available to us. I don't know what jobs will come up, if any. I don't know what finances the club at the moment for us are going to have in terms of being able to contribute to upgrading the squad moving forward. But generally speaking, it's incredibly frustrating where it's the 3rd season in Hungary with Puskás where you just think we haven't quite managed to achieve what I think we should have, let alone the ultimate of actually winning the league, because we've been second in the rankings for the last 2 or 3 seasons, and we finished 3rd, 5th, and 4th, I think it's been. So it's just never quite got there. And it's defensively is the issue more than anything. We've scored bucket loads of goals. Sabolski, who is starts at the age of 19 in the game, at the very point when you load up a game in the Derby County under-19s reserve side or whatever it is, you can find him there. He's my target forward at 6'5". He develops pretty well. He scored 33 goals in 37 matches or something last season. Did great. And he's supported by other players doing similar sorts of things. So the attacking side is there. Defensively, we were solid for the first half, lost the central defence for the second half. And you just can't lose that type of player and it not have an impact. So, yeah, I'm a little bit frustrated. We are going to have to move sideways again. So whenever we do win the Hungarian League, it will be moving into Serbia. It would have been Austria if we were moving forward. So we've got to go to Serbia at some point and add more countries to the journey, which, we're in May. I've only got through to like October or whatever it is, and I'm kind of slightly concerned. I'd love an opportunity at some point in the next, couple of seasons, if we get out of Hungary, just have 1 or 2 moments where you get the right club at the right time, you win a couple of leagues, you move forward, you get momentum into it. At the moment, it feels like it's stalled a little bit. So I'm enjoying my time in Hungary. It's a really, really good league to play in because there's no registration rules for the Hungarian League. What I'm considering this time round is if we stay at Puskás particularly, I might actually specifically bin off the European stuff this year because we did well. We got to a quarter-final of the Europa Conference League with Puskás, and that's the second time we've not reached that because we got to the semis the season before. I think I've given that the best shot I can. I might just bin off the qualifiers next time round and reduce the amount of games that we play and just absolutely focus on that league if I can get away with doing it and not get the sack for being rubbish or something, in a qualifying round. So, yeah, all in all, it's frustrating. The attacking side is great. The defensive side, not so much. I don't know what the finance is going to be like because I pushed them as far as I could. and we didn't win the league again. So we're still in Hungary, still having a lovely time on stream. Had a really good week of streams, actually. It was a really fun week to go through. Lots of new people in and around the streams, which was great. The chat and the interaction was really positive this week, which is fantastic. So loved being there. But I didn't win the league again, and we're still in Hungary. And that's as much of an update as I can bring.
I mean, I do feel for you, Kev. I really do feel for you with this one, because there are some European countries where you're managing there, and as you said, Hungary is one of the top ones for that, where it's just such a coin toss almost, because there are so many clubs that can feasibly challenge for a title season on season.
Yeah,
and it's just these little events. It's that centre back going, it's your other centre back picking up an injury. Those are the things that will cost you a title, and they're dice rolls though. But that's the thing; those aren't the things that you can expect and plan for. It's just this is just the way that it goes. The fact that you've got a target forward who scored 33 goals this season, I think that's witchcraft. I don't think I've scored a single goal with a target forward in FM23 across any. I just can't do it. Target forwards and me do not get on.
Are you playing your target forward on his own, or are you playing with a partner? Because he's always got a partner.
Yeah.
Oh, he's always got mates. They've always got mates. Yes, never alone. Never alone up there. But no, I just can't get a song out of one. So
my target forward with Slough was sensational. I think if you get him working right, especially if you've got a big boy. He was 6'5" as well, mine, bizarrely. So you do need them to be very big, I think. But
sure.
Yeah, I mean, if you get a target forward working well, it is a thing of beauty.
It really is. And the way that I've done it, and it may not work for anybody else, but the way that I've done it is that I have. So if you can picture the way that your tactic is set up in my 4-4-2, I have the target forward on the left of the pairing up front with an advanced forward or a poacher playing alongside him, depending on which of my players plays there. On the left-hand side, I've got an inside forward. Yeah. So I've dropped my target forward into the supporting role, because then when he's coming through, I've got two players around him that are going to work from it. So if you were to flip that and put the target forward on the other side, you'd only have a connection to the poacher or the advanced forward, because the left-sided player wouldn't be anywhere near it. Because on the other side, I've got a deeper lying winger. I've got him on the central midfield line, not the attacking midfield line. So he's putting balls in across the box to the target forward. He's missing out that first player from his side in the advanced forward role and going to the target forward. So we're getting goals from him from that crossing. We're getting him to assist players in and around him with the players running through off the left-hand side. And also, just very occasionally, he's in and around the box and is not bad with his feet and shoots at goal and scores. So there's lots of ways in which you can get something out of him. So I think it's really important, again, that what we realize, and I'm not saying you don't, I'm saying that this is the thing that FM players need to realize, is that you've got 11 players for a reason, and they have to fit together. And how are you getting the best out of those players? How I've done it for mine. So it's been a key part of my setup all the way through FM23 is that target forward role. I've really enjoyed playing it this year.
I agree. I think the best way to play a target forward is exactly how you've done it there, Kev, in the sense of you basically build your attacks around them. So like if they are, you don't just go, oh, well, that's not really working. He's tall. I'm going to change him to target forward. You do have to build that attack. So like you say, you might have noticed when you said about the inside forward on the left, that's exactly what I do. Exactly what I do. Because then you're building, you've got more men in that area, sort of crowding that area, if you like. And that inside forward is probably going to take a defender away from the target forward as well when you're sort of putting crosses into that box. And then that winger, his sole purpose in that game is put it on his head. Just put it on his head. That's all I want you to do. I want you to put it on his head. And they can be so effective if you do base it all around it. If you don't, like you say, if you have the inside forward on the other side, for example, and you're not sort of basing it fully around it, then it probably won't work. Because you're not gearing that target forward towards it, are you? I wanted to touch on something else you said, Kev, about binning off Europe. Now, this is something that I have found, not obviously binning off Europe because I'm Slough manager, but binning off competitions. I think it is something that is a really interesting thought process as a manager on Football Manager, because the reality is, as a football fan, You want your team to win every tournament they're in reality,
Sure.
you know, and you know, like there's a lot of criticism, for example, in the Premier League around teams throwing the Carabao Cup. Because they just don't care. So they put out their weaker sides. They more often than not still win the tournament, may I add, like with those weaker sides, Man City. But they are more often than not resting those players because they'd rather win the Champions League and they'd rather win the Premier League. You know, when you're Slough manager and you're in the Papa John's, Domino's, Pizza Hut Surprise Championship Cup, I couldn't care less about that trophy because however far I get, when I face Spurs under 23s and their centre forwards worth £60 million, I probably can't beat them. So I throw that tournament. I go, you know what? I'm not going to win it because I want to get promoted. The sole purpose of this is I want to get promoted. I'm not going to win the FA Cup. I'm not going to win the Carabao Cup. So when I start getting into those, however, it's the money. That's the thing that will keep you going with it. And if you're in Hungary and you're thinking, I just want to get out of this, realistically, the longevity isn't there. So I completely agree with you. I'd be bidding off Europe if I was in your situation. However, when you're in a one-team save like I am, I started going, look, I'm not going to win the FA Cup. What's the point? We may as well chuck this. We want to try and get out of the Vanarama National. But people kept saying to me, yeah, but are you aware that if you got to like the 4th round of the FA Cup and you drew Newcastle away, that financially could set you up for the next 3 years?
Sure.
You know, it could be that big for the club. So it's another one of the many caveats to what is a fantastic game, isn't it? Because it's all that thought process of you've got to think, what do I do? Do I give this up? But if I do give this up, then what if I give up the Papa John's, Pizza Hut, Surprise, Domino's championships and then I finish 4th in the league? I may as well have tried to win the Papa John's, you know, and it's just really interesting how you sort of, you know, delegate, I suppose, I think.
Yeah, it is, and I think that there is this this part of who I am, just as a person, where I haven't been able to bring myself to bin things off. Particularly, I have to try my best to balance the things and do the thing to win as much as I can. And you know, to be totally truthful, in the last 2 seasons, we got to a semi and then a quarter-final of the Europa Conference League for Puskás. That's a really good achievement, but we were so close to winning it. We were so close to winning it. And so there's still that part of me that says, I could win a European trophy. That would be amazing at Puskás Academia to do that. But it's not going to help me with what I set the save up to be. And so I've tried as much as I can to balance it. But that last half a dozen, maybe 8 to 10 games even of the domestic season, this season just gone, they were so knackered. I just couldn't get a team together that were fully fit and raring to go and in good form and all moving in the same direction. And I just wonder whether taking some of those knockout stages out of that particular part of the season would help. So we are maybe doing that next season. We'll see how we go, and what sort of recruitment we can do in the summer as to how we can improve the squad. But ultimately, I think it is an issue that I need to prioritize what I'm here to try and do. Ultimately,
you are 100% winning the Conference League next year. I can feel it. It's coming.
I'll put my under 9s in, and they'll still get through some random way. It's just gonna,
It's just because you're too polite, Kev. It's like I really don't think I want to play in the Europa Conference League this season. I just really don't think. Kev, would you like to play in the Europa Conference League this season? Oh, I'd love to. Thank you very much for the invitation. I'll be there. Thank you.
And to be totally truthful, the other thing I want to do is eat whatever trophy Callum's in. I think that sounded lovely. I'll have it.
It
Sound delicious. Yeah. We've taken a trophy, we just deep fried it. It's incredible. Absolutely.
So I'm going to be back on Monday, and we're going to be doing a whole transfer load of stuff just through the summer transfer window. And I genuinely, really honestly at this point, I don't know what the finances are going to be like because we pushed them. So it could be a problem this time around to improve the squad. And if we can't, I don't quite know how we get those little gains to get to the top of the league. So come and find us on the mid-afternoon weekdays, should I say, and we'll see what we can do. But it's been brilliant. I've had the greatest time. I'm still blooming in Hungary, and I don't want to be.
Next time we catch up with you, Kev, you'll have won a European Championship, you'll have won a league, you'll have picked up the best job in Serbia, and you'll be 20 points clear after 3 games. It's just, I don't, I can just see it happening. I've just got a feeling. I've just got a really, really good feeling
Right.
it's all going to be okay.
Okay.
Maths is hard. I chose looks, not books. Counting is tricky. But I
think that I think all of that will be maybe the case, and I'll still have found myself in Japan somehow and just been miles away. Even I don't know how. But
Just got lost. Got lost.
Just
got the wrong flight.
The job. Just got offered the job. The league isn't even loaded in. It's like, do you want to come and manage Grampus 8? It's like, sure. Yeah, absolutely, I do. Thank you for the opportunity. Can't wait.
I suppose, Kev, the other thing with Europe is if you were to win it, surely your reputation would then improve. And then when you're going to the next club, you potentially get the best club in that division rather than maybe the second or third. So it could selfishly, which sounds ridiculous to say it would be selfish for you to win a European competition with a Hungarian team, but selfishly for your development, it could actually be a really good thing.
It's a challenge, isn't it? I get that totally, but I also think that because of the nations that we're currently dealing with in terms of moving to Serbia next and all that kind of stuff, I think purely because to get there, I'll have already won the Ukrainian league, the Romanian league, and the Hungarian league to get to Serbia. That will do me enough to get that in the first place, I think. It will be, if I get out of Serbia, and I'm not quite sure where that would mean I would go after that and all that kind of stuff. Eventually, please, eventually, we will be aiming to go into the likes of, Germany, France, England, all that kind of stuff. And it will be those moments where if I've won all of these smaller leagues to get to where we are, is that enough? Or at some point, do I have to have won a European thing to get a top job in one of those potentially? So just at the moment, I think we're okay. But you're right. If I win the Europa Conference League with Puskás Academia, then that's going to boost the reputation that I have moving forward into some of the bigger leagues, definitely. So thanks for confusing me even more and making it so I have to participate in the European stuff this year. I really appreciate you. It's been lovely talking to you.
But I've also, Kev, if you considered not doing that, because I can't figure out any additional benefits. I just can't.
Right, I'm becoming a Minecraft streamer. That's it. I've had that.
Exactly. That's what we should all do. That we should all just pie this off and just stream different games. Life would be easier. But we're not going to stream different games. We're going to keep streaming this game. Some of us, in fact, at the time of recording, are going to be streaming this game later on this evening. Segue, boys, segue. Because in the exciting world of Football Manager PvP, drafting is back on the menu for the 3 members of podcast that are here today in different capacities. The FM Super League, there was a draft on Friday night. Callum drafted. I drafted. Kev sat there and analysed us drafting as part of the Super League panel. Kev, I mean, you sat there and watched us drafting teams. From your point of view, before we go to Callum and then I suppose myself, how do you think we got on?
Well, I had the most chilled out evening out of the 3 of us, I'm sure. I had a lovely time just sitting there on the panel, chatting with Murph and Cozza Bob and how we roll Owen and Pokes. It was lovely watching you all try and figure out what to do with the money you've got and find the players you want. So I had a lovely time, firstly, on the panel. So thank you, Murph, for inviting me on. How do I think? You see, I've got a bone to pick with the 2 of you. So we sat here, I think, last week, and we talked about the fact you were going to be drafting in the Super League and that nothing was going to stop us from being connected to each other. They weren't going to divide us. I was going to support you to the hilt and all that kind of stuff. And that is going to be my shtick all weekend long. And so I came out the block strong. I said, nobody will divide us. FMT for the win. Watch my boys. They're going to go. And then you both drafted really well and the rest of the panel did it too. And I've got nowhere else to go now. What am I supposed to talk about? Everybody went, yeah, Rich is really good. Callum's done really well. And I thought, shut up. Leave me alone. This is my stick. What are you doing, boys? For goodness sake.
Oh, they don't call him the United City FM for no reason.
I was so frustrated that was my bit. And they all thought they join in because you did really well. So congratulations, boys. This divided nature. And that's it. I'm done.
Cheers, Kev.
I'm
Yeah,
going to be
good
backing
done.
everybody but you guys this evening. When
I
we go
think
to
you
the
should.
game.
I think you should do
Yeah,
that. That would be
back everybody.
hilarious. Anyone but the FMT.
But no, it was
Yeah.
great. I genuinely felt that both of you drafted really well. Actually, the simple reality is, look, what did we have? We had Ligue 1, Eredivisie, and the Portuguese Primeira League, or whatever they call it. Those were the three that we drafted from. You had a £400 million budget. That was very, very generous.
Too much.
So,
It
was too much,
Yeah.
I think. But what we've now got is we've got 8 squads that are pretty good, if not decent above that. You know, obviously, if viewers are out there, they're kind of processing that player pool a little bit and the amount of money you've got to spend. You've got the big three. You've got Neymar, Messi, and Mbappe, and they went in the first 3 picks. So there's an advantage sort of to those, although Mbappe was my dodgy pick to not go anywhere near from the panel's perspective, because I genuinely don't know at 93 million or whatever whether he's going to show up and do it. And for 93 million, you've got to know he's going to show up and do it. So he might do, and he might be the best player in the tournament, and that's fair enough. It might happen, but I'm still backing the thought that I'm just not so sure that he's going to be as consistent as you want. So that was the first thing that I thought. Those 3 have gone. But apart from those, there's some really good players in this pool. And I think most players, participants, should I say, have got a balanced squad where they can do a few different things if they need to. But I'm still backing my boys. You drafted really well. And may I say, before you guys speak on it at all, you showed everybody else up. I mean, Callum's Superman outfit and whatever it was that Rich had on his face, I have no idea what to say. I couldn't tell whether you were having some crisis, Rich, or something, but I couldn't watch your stream for too long. It was like you were looking into my soul somehow from some deep, dark place. It was very, very odd, but well played, because, you know, this is what we're here to do, entertain, and you did it magnificently well. Now let's see whether you can put it on a football pitch this evening and get your very well drafted squads to play. I have big expectations. Don't let me down, boys. Come on. So what did you guys think? How did it go for you in terms of the actual drafting experience and where you spent your money and how you felt the balance of your squads was?
Sure. I mean, Callum, we'll come to you first, pal, because I think this is, am I right in saying this is your first time, you know, lacing up your drafting boots in quite a while?
It is, yeah. I mean, it's not something I wholeheartedly enjoy, honestly, drafting. It's not something that I do very regularly, partly because I'm not very good. So I just get quite annoyed at the fact I'm not very good, considering I play the game all the time. Why am I not good at drafting? But I don't know. I took a bit of a break. I did a couple of tournaments. I think it was even in 2022. You know, I'm not sure I've done one this year. I've done sort of offline ones or just, you know, community drafts, but I've not done ranked drafting. How do I think it went? My initial reaction was I didn't think it went very well, honestly. And I think sort of listening to other people, listening to my chat were very negative about my draft, and which is fair enough. Everyone's entitled to their opinions. And then I went raided into the Super League at the end of the show, and everyone was singing your praises, rightly so, I think. And there wasn't really any mention of mine. So I did sort of watch the show back to sort of go, I'm intrigued. And in fairness, there were compliments. Like, a few people picked out a few of my picks and said, actually, I think these are really solid picks. The budget threw me. I ended the draft with £80 million. Now, that is absolutely ridiculous. Like, you should never be ending a draft. And I drafted 20 players as well. You know, I didn't stop on 18. I drafted all 20 and I had £80 million left. Almost enough for an Mbappe. It's almost like I had a plan. So I actually think, unfortunately, the gamble of drafting Mbappe, Neymar and Messi isn't there. I don't think it's a gamble, because I think the budget was so large that they can be rubbish, and I think you'll still have a really solid 10 around them with players on the bench to replace them. So it's almost like a free hit having one of those 3 players. I think if they're rubbish in a game, just get them off and you'll have an adequate replacement. I would have been able to have the squad I have and as a 21st pick have Messi or Neymar. So, for me, it didn't make an awful lot of difference. I think personally, and I said this to a few of the people in the Discord, I think 300 million would have made it a bit more interesting. Just because I think then the Neymar, Messi, Mbappe pick is a gamble. Because then you've got a lot smaller budget. I mean, I had about 11 players. I still had 200 million to go. And I'd basically picked my starting 11. So I was like, this doesn't really make an awful lot of sense. I'm quietly confident. I'm quietly confident this evening. I think I said to Kevin Rich before we started podding, I drafted for a formation. I have a formation in plan. I have done a bit of research around this formation, and I think I have the players for it to be effective. It would have been more effective with Mbappe, but Celavi, life is life. I have had to replace Mbappe. Is Ross Barkley as good as Mbappe? Probably not quite. It's close. It is close. But people have called him the English Mbappe at times. But not quite, I would say. I don't know. I honestly, I just really want to get out of the group. I really want to, for once, for once, actually do something in one of these drafts. Because if I did get out of the group, I might go, you know what, I'll give another one a go. Because I just feel like if I go into it again, because you do build up to it, you do a bit of prep for it, you do get yourself a bit like, oh, I could do something here. And then if I just come bottom of the group again, I'll be like, well, what's the point? What's the point in sort of getting yourself hyped up for it? But what I can guarantee, if you watch a White Callum stream, I'm saying it as if you can. Well, this is going out on Tuesday. If you did watch the White Callum stream, I can guarantee you a few things. The first thing I can guarantee you is 3 games of football, guaranteed. You will see 3 games of football, and I can guarantee you I'll be wearing another costume, not the same one. And the third thing I can guarantee you is you will be entertained. And that is what I can guarantee you. Whether we win, lose, or draw, you will have a good time in my stream. You will have had a good time in my stream. That obviously it's happened already. Now we've already had our final, Rich. It's happened.
Exactly.
It was 0-0 going into penalties because we refused to score. We just held each other crying as the 24th penalty missed, because obviously in agreement we just decided, and then eventually Murph decided we were joint winners of the Super League, and we will retain it together in season 4. I assume
it was great. Honestly, I wasn't even shocked, but it just seemed like the logical conclusion. It just seemed to make sense to me. It seemed to make sense. I will absolutely agree with you on a couple of points you made there. On the budget was very, very generous. Now, I fully understand when Murph was talking about it in the kind of the pre-draft stream. So the budget was big because they wanted to give people the opportunity to showcase the best players available in some of these leagues. And I completely understand that. That does make a lot of sense. 300 million probably would have made it a little bit more interesting. I think I spent the vast majority of my budget, but I only did that because after I drafted my first 11, after I drafted what I saw as the players that were probably going to make the biggest impact off the bench, I was like, right, I might need a central midfielder. Who's the most expensive central midfielder that's available? I'll just buy them for the sake of buying them. I think at one point, we got down to I think we were 15 rounds in, and I think it was Trek still had something like 250 million pounds left, bonkers amounts of money at that stage. But again, I like the fact that it kind of, it gave you more options in terms of where you went. I mean, people still picked up budget picks. There were still centre backs going for 850 odd K. For my drafting experience, I suppose, was a bit of a weird one because I didn't do any prep for it. What are the chances? Weird that, because I normally plan ahead so meticulously. My logic being, I've got a fairly decent knowledge of the pool. We know Liga, we know Portugal. We've got experience. We know Eredivisie. That'll all be fine. I was drafting last, so it was an 8-man draft. I was drafting in 8th place, which meant I got double picks. Now, it was guaranteed that the big players were going to be gone early doors. Had there been a Messi or a Neymar or an Mbappe available, I would have gone for them first pick, no questions asked, because why wouldn't you? Because they can be differentials. My draft advice, whenever I'm sat on a panel, I will always say, go big, pick one, and then build around them. So if you're drafting, if the Premier League is in there, if you've got £300 million and it's a Premier League pool, if Erling Haaland is available, you draft Erling Haaland, because Erling Haaland is arguably the best striker in the entire database. You pick Haaland and then you work around him. You go big early doors. I stuck to that principle, but I was like, I'm going to have to go big with whatever's left after 7 people have already picked. There's no chance of there being any of the big 3 there. There are some bigger players from around Portugal and from around Holland that are probably going to get picked up quite early as well. So I'll see who's left and I'll just get the 2 biggest names I possibly can, and then we'll take it from there. Which ended up being, I think it was Otavio and Pedro Goncalves, which I was really, really happy with, actually, because they are 2 really, really well-rounded players. Very surprised they were both there, if I'm completely honest with you. I was expecting maybe one, but not both. And then it was very much like Callum. I'm drafting to a system. So I'm not drafting players that I think are good. I'm not right. I've got a system in my head. I know what I want to do with it. Let's draft the players to the system. And every time I got to my picks, there were decent players there left for every position that I was trying to draft in. And again, the see what's left and take what I can. That was the policy throughout, if I'm completely honest with you. I was like, right, I've got the 2 good players, 2 big players. Next picks, I will need a striker and I will need a central midfielder. So let's see who is available when it gets to this stage of the draft. And I was really, really fortunate with some of the players that I got to pick up. I've lifted my squad up just to remind myself of some of the players that I managed to pick. I think all things considered, I got quite lucky with the fact that a lot of these players were left, like picking up players like Mukiele, who was around, St. Just. We talked about budget picks earlier. Original from Ajax, the left fullback, 850k. Normally goes very, very early in drafts because he's a valuable asset. He's first team quality for less than £1 million, which in a draft is quite incredible. Breel Mbolo was there. I love Breel Mbolo. I'm a big Mbolo guy. Burak Yilmaz was like a late pick, but I was shocked he was still there. And then nobody pulled triggers on goalkeepers. It was quite, I think, the first person to draft a keeper was Simon Maggio.
You got Donnarumma in the round. I was going to get him as well. I was going to get Donnarumma. I got Rich.
I was just sat there. I was like, well, sat there talking away to chat, and I was like, is now the time, because he's still available, and Maggio's picked up a goalkeeper, so other people are probably going to start doing that. So let's get Donnarumma in. Let's do it. Let's just do it now. And shocked he was still there because everybody had the money for him. The best thing about it for me, very much like Callum, I'm an infrequent drafter, especially when it comes to ranked. We do community drafts, do FMT versus the community. Always great fun. I've dipped my toes in with the ranked this year, and I always have a nice time. But for me, it's not about winning the draft. Of course, I'd like to, because it's always fun to win things. And I say this a lot, and Kev, I love you. You always give me pelters for just saying he's just here to make it. He says he's just here to make up the numbers. He's here for a good time. And that is still to an extent quite true, because the best part of Friday night for me was getting to sit and hang out on a voice call with Callum, with GYR, with Ian, with Simon Maggio, with everybody that was drafting, like Carr was in, FM King was there, like just getting to sit and hang out on a voice call with those guys for a couple of hours on a Friday night, for me, was great fun. And that's the part of drafting that I enjoy the most. It's the social aspect. It's getting to chat to people. It's, getting to chat to people that I don't get to speak to all that often. And it's just building those relationships. And that, for me, is my favorite bit. I mean, of course, I'm going to win because everyone said I've got the best squad, so we'll do that as well. But, I enjoy the social side of things. So, again, thank you to Murph for the invite. I massively appreciate it. And also, again, thank you, Murph, for just deciding that Callum and I are joint winners before a ball was even kicked.
Thanks,
really, really
Murph.
sweet of you. Yeah, cheers, pal. Cheers. Of course, if you're watching this on Patreon on Monday, if you're watching this publicly on Tuesday, go back to the FM Super League. They'll have the VOD up. It'll be there on Twitch. I think it's twitch.tv/. Is it the FM Super League or just FM
It
Super
is.
League?
No, it's the FM Super.
The FM Super League. There we go. So yeah, check them out. They're great guys, obviously run by Murph. The panel are great. We're all great. And you can see Callum and I winning and crying together, just weeping openly.
Perfect.
It'll be really, really good. Yeah. Come and hang out. Spend some time with us. We've done some drafts and we're going to have a nice time playing with the teams.
Rich, how
Callum.
are you going to get on? Predict, please. How are you going to get on? If you had to say honestly now, where do you think you're going to finish?
I want to get out the group. I really do. I want to get out of the group. I think our group, I'm looking forward to playing you, Callum, because I'm going to just get to sit and chat to you again.
I reckon we should put it on like full match.
Yeah.
We'll just sit
full
there. Everyone will
match,
still be
full 90.
Just
Isn't
record
this nice?
record an episode of the pod for the Patreon.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Special edition live Patreon podcast. But yeah, I think we've got it's ourselves, it's Trek, and it's FM King in our group. Trek and FM King, obviously, both very, very, very good at the game.
Tough group.
I think FM King recently found out he's ranked first in the world, just completely by accident. Didn't know going into the competition. He's whoops. Oh, am I? And I'd like to say that I'm responsible for that because he tagged in for me in the Spring Cup.
Oh
a couple
yeah,
of weeks ago.
Yeah.
And I think made it to the semi-finals with the squad I drafted. So you're welcome, FM King. Return the favor, please, by playing any of your players, your outfield players in goal for the second half. Go on, you know you want to. Yeah, making out that group for me would be, I'd consider that a win in and of itself. You know, I'd be very, very happy with the semi-finals. I'd be delighted with the semi-finals. If I don't make it out, I'll have had a nice time playing 3 games of FM with my friends. So again, it could be significantly worse. Callum, where are you finishing? Honest predictions. Put it out there to the universe.
I really want to say that I think I'm going to win it, but I think I'm going to come bottom of the group again. I do have a little bit of confidence in the squad I've got, but as we keep saying, everyone's got a good squad. I'm in a group of people who are officially, according to rankings, better than me at drafting. I think I would have to have a stormer to get out of the group. So my heart says I get to the semis. My head says I finish bottom again. But we'll see. We'll see.
Hey, I've just looked out the window, mate. I can see from here there's a storm coming. It's Callum's day. It's Callum's time. It's beautiful blue skies. Beautiful blue skies out
No
here.
storm at
So
all.
maybe just on the horizon there. Maybe just on the horizon. Little Y Callum storm coming over the hill. Kev, before we move on to the next section of pod, as somebody who sat on the panel, assessed our squads, you've seen the whole field. I know you've said, God bless you, you're backing us to the hill because you're just a wonderful, wonderful man. Predictions. Where are Cal and I finishing this evening?
I've got one prediction for you, and it's that Pokes is going to win the panel.
Yes,
Up the
Pokes for the panel. Up the Pokes.
This is the simple reality. If you want me to be serious for a moment, we can be. Absolutely. This is FM23. Who on earth has a clue? If you think you've got an idea as to how this evening's going to run, you really, really don't. You know, there is no magic formula here. There are going to be some tried and tested tactics and systems and formations, but with new players playing in roles for some of these managers. And so there is an even playing field. What I do genuinely believe is that the two of you drafted really well. I know that, you've both got an idea of how you want to set up. There is absolutely no reason why you can't get through the group. There's just not. This is FM23. Trek and FM King in your side of the draw are tough, but they're not unbeatable. But then neither are you. So they've got as much chance and they'll feel very good about themselves, I'm sure, because they've had previous experience and wins under their belt. So ultimately, I literally have no idea, but nobody will divide us. FMT for the win. I like the idea of both of you getting to the final and just saying, nope, we refuse. We're going to win it together. I'll take it. And that's all I care about. Nobody will divide us, but for goodness sake, don't let me down.
There we go. No pressure then. No pressure whatsoever. No pressure at all. We're going to be fine. Going to be absolutely fine. Can't wait to play. Can't wait to get started this evening. And of course, this time next week, we'll be talking about how it went on pod. So come back and listen to us. Make your predictions now. You can't. because it's already happened when you're watching this. But if you have, who knows? I've tried to be clever and I've just put my foot in it. Silly Richard, how dare you? Let's move on then before I say anything else daft. Well, let's move on to the next section where I'll definitely say something daft, but it's a different section, so it doesn't count. We thought this week for second bit of pod or second half podcast, with real life football, with the season starting to draw to an end, promotion and relegation have been steadily fought for across all divisions, and of course, league championships are being fought for, and one at time of recording, one yesterday by Man City because Arsenal lost. Well done, you won the league. Proud of you. I don't know. Are we? Hard to say. But it's more interesting, significantly more interesting, especially when it comes to the Premier League, of what's going on at the foot of the table, because this year's relegation battle in the Premier League is quite incredible. It's been tight all over the Football League, but the Premier League's especially very, very exciting this year. So what we thought we would do is we just have a bit of a chat about how, in terms of Football Manager, we, as a group of people who have played the game a lot, have dealt with or plan to deal with relegation in a save. It's something that, we can't win everything, or in my case, anything. But, we can't win all the time. Sometimes, you get dealt a dodgy hand by life. When it comes to relegation, how do we handle it? How do we approach the situation? Callum, we'll start with you first, pal. I mean, have you tasted much relegation in terms of Football Manager saves?
Well, first of all, as an Evertonian, in the current situation we're in, this feels too close to home to be talking about relegation, honestly. I mean, in about an hour and a half's time, Leeds are kicking off, and if they win, I think we're getting relegated. But anyway, moving on. Relegation in Football Manager. I'll be honest with you, I haven't experienced it a lot. I did experience it last year in game with Chorley, where we spent about 3 or 4 years trying to get out of League One. We got into the Championship and we were so out of our depth that we got relegated. And it was the best thing that happened at Chorley. However, I think relegation is a really, really tricky one, because as a manager, more often than not, you won't keep your job, I would say, when you get relegated. And so I would argue, unless you go up with attempt to survive, which is like, just do what you can. It's a free pass. If you go down, that's fine. You can manage us next year as well if you want, which is always lovely. I love that one. I've literally just got that one because I got promoted with Slough last night. And that's just happened, which is a godsend. But what I like is taking over a team that's just been relegated. That's one of my favourite saves to do. When I was doing offline saves, I would quite regularly do a season with a side that's just got relegated from the Premier League. So you have got all of the players that are like, I'm Premier League standard, I should be in the Championship, you've got to sell me right away. And then you've also got the players who go, no, I want to stick around. I'm happy to fight for the cause. And it's about sifting through your squad, I think, is the key to a good relegation season. Who's going to fight for you? You will have one or two who kick up a fuss, but you go, no, you're a really good footballer. You can kick up a fuss as much as you want till November, and then suddenly you'll realise, I'm not going anywhere till January. I've got to start playing football now, haven't I? And so you've got to keep some. You've got to get rid of some. You've got to reinvest that money in players who are actually going to get you out of that division. I think relegation can sometimes be the most fun FM can be. As silly as that may sound, but it is very much dependent on whether, if you've got that club relegated, they believe you are the one to get them back out of it. But it's part of the game. It's part of football, and it can be hugely detrimental to a club, can't it? A relegation, financially, fan base wise, everything that goes towards it, but can also be quite fun. Can also be quite fun to manage.
Absolutely. I think you've hit the nail on the head there. I really, really like the concept of taking a relegated club and then just seeing what you can do with them. I mean, Kev, is that something that, given the amount of experience you have with the game, it must be something you've dabbled in previously, I'm sure?
Oh, absolutely. Don't ever think that I haven't experienced the wide breadth of pain and misfortune in FM. I very much have over my time. I've been playing it for far too long for that not to be the case. It's a really interesting thing. There's a lot that you can echo what Callum's just said. Ultimately, it's determined on, in what circumstance have you gone down? Were you supposed to go down? Were you not supposed to go down? Were you supposed to go up in the first place? Have you a brand new club because they've gone down? All of those things have a big impact. The way that I view it for myself, though, is I have a way that I approach getting promoted in terms of what I look for in the following season, in terms of if I get promoted, but I'm now at the bottom rung of the division above because I've got promoted, then you have to set your team up differently than the season before when you were top of your previous league going, yes, we're all guns blazing. So it's the same in reverse. If I get relegated or I've come into a club that's got relegated, you have to assess, where do they now fit in that league? Are they still going to be the top echelon of the new league that they're in because they've got some good players that you've managed to hang on to? Or have you had to completely fire sale the whole lot and you've now got a bunch of 19-year-olds that have never played before? What sort of formations and tactical setups are you coming up against in the league below now? Because let's just take the English system for a moment, because that's what I know the most about. If you're in the Premier League, you've got, various pockets of teams at various levels that you would suggest you're going to struggle against some, you're going to be okay against others. But if you get relegated out of that, you've got parachute payments and all sorts of other bits and pieces that are going to impact you financially on a positive side compared to other championship clubs. But the championship is a really, really hard league. It's a longer league for a start. So have you got the squad depth coming out of the Premier League to then cope with the extra games that you've now got to play domestically speaking in the Championship, etc.? The style of play is difficult. We talked earlier about my Hungarian situation where lots of teams take lots of points off of everybody. That happens to a certain extent at the top of the Championship. There's always half a dozen clubs that are in around there having a go. So for me, it's about where am I at in the league? What is my predicted finishing spot? Are there teams above me that I'm going to have to change my style of play and make myself harder to beat? Are there other teams below me where you just go out and do it, get at them, push them, poke them and prod them as much as you can and attack them as much as is possible and dominate those fixtures? And so there's a balancing act, but it's all key to what personnel you've been able to keep ultimately. And that's the challenge of relegation, isn't it? There will be a situation where financially speaking, you have to clear your squad because they can't cope financially with the amount of wages that you're paying these players. If you've a surprise drop down, for example, then that you're going to have that as an issue. So that's the way that I approach it. It's less about how I play in terms of in the initial instance as much as it is where am I supposed to finish and what indication does that give me about how I'm supposed to set my squad up, and then do the best you can to attract the players that you think are going to do that. And make some wise moves, in the sense of you might be devastated to lose your £35 million rated striker, but with 35 million, can you buy 5 squad players that are going to be brilliant in the new league that you're in? You've got to make those choices. That's the joys and the pains of management, isn't it? So yeah, there's a few bits in there. And also, I guess, now that I'm a bit more entrenched in it, the question I have, do you train them the same? Do you focus on the same things now that you're in the sort of the lesser league? Because a lot of people try and train to their tactic. But if your tactic changes, then therefore your training has to change because you're now less focused on maybe the technical side of it, more the physical side of it, or whatever it might be. That's just an obvious example. But there's lots of things that you now have to think about, I think, really, in terms of how you then move the whole club forward. But yeah, it's something that I have experienced in my time. Fortunately, within the last couple of cycles of FM on my created content, ultimately, I'm in the slight difference of I'm often moving upwards or I'm attempting to win stuff at top of leagues, etc. So it's been less of an issue. But watch this space next year because I know what my save is going to be for FM24 already. And there might be some fun in that one, maybe. We'll see. But yeah, it's an interesting scenario. But I do have, as I say, a very key way in which I process what happens when you go up a division, but also when you go back down a division. How do you assess where you are within that league?
It's a very, very good approach to it. I think it's a very pragmatic way of looking at things. I mean, take for example, if you look at the FMT network save, if you look at Crystal Palace, formerly Alice's Palace, were relegated end of season 1. Already, the bones are being picked of their squad. I think Jeb has signed 2 Palace players so far. But so from Palace's point of view, they've lost arguably their best centre back, and they've lost arguably one of probably their best kind of wide player. But as a result of losing both those players, they are now something like £78 million better off for it. £78 million will get you a lot of quality for a club that would be expected to bounce straight back up. So it's not necessarily the end of the world. I think I've seen Reddit posts recently where somebody said they've simmed a season, they've taken over at, Callum, Everton, who got relegated in game. And they just sold all the assets that wanted to leave. And they're like, right, I'm sat in the Championship with a transfer budget of like £225 million now. Like, I don't even know where to begin with this. So especially the Premier League is kind of like the most extreme example of this. Like, relegation isn't necessarily death for a club. You know, it's just an opportunity to rebuild. It's an opportunity to attack and start again. Obviously, as you start to drop down the leagues, that does start to become slightly more difficult. I think Callum hit a really interesting point as well. It's not very often that you get relegated in a save and keep your job. I think that's something that a little bit more flexibility on would be appreciated, I suppose. I mean, if I look at my first ever stream save, my Sheffield Wednesday save, that was rage quit 5 seasons in after playing 5 Trequartistas in one game and somehow winning. The only reason that happened is because we got promoted after 3 years in the Championship. We shouldn't have been promoted. It was just we had a very, very good playoff run. First season in the Premier League, significantly overachieved. I think we finished top half, which wasn't expected. But I think we finished 10th, maybe 11th. So we were there or thereabouts. Very, very comfortable. Didn't look like getting relegated at all. And that season, the board objectives were just, do your best. We're here for a good time, not a long time, boys. Just whatever you can do, just give it a go and we'll see where we are next year. Season 2 in the Premier League, that changed. Like that mid-table finish season 1 became the benchmark. It was the exception. It was the rule rather than the exception. And then those were the metrics that you're being measured against. And then when you sat in 15th or 16th with 10 games to go, the board were like, oh, this isn't going well at all. You've got a month to turn it around or we're going to sack you. I'm like, no, but this is still really good. Like, I'm still doing quite well. Can we just, but there's no flexibility there from them. It was very much like, it was like Ranieri at Leicester City. He was favourite to get relegated. A lot of people's favourites to get relegated, wins the league in arguably one of the most incredible sporting achievements ever outside, just not in world sport, not just limited to football. Leicester's title winning season, incredible. But then those were the standards he was held to in his second season. And of course, Leicester City weren't going to retain that Premier League title. There was no feasible way that was ever going to happen. But those were the metrics that he was being measured against in that second season. And it just didn't make sense.
That's exactly what I'm really glad you brought that out, Rich, because that was exactly what I was going to say, in the sense of I also agree with you. I wish there's a bit more leniency within the game, especially if you've been at a club for a long period of time, almost like a loyalty, if you like, of, well, hold on. Yeah, you have actually had a bad season here, but you've been with us for 7 years and you've really built the club up well. So because of this one bad season, it's fine. But in reality, in actual football, managers do get sacked then. And that is, we're talking about the Premier League a lot today, and I think the Premier League is as high profile as it gets. But there was a point this season where Sean Dyche should come in, and he was the 13th longest standing manager, and he'd been there about a month. And because the turnover of managers at the top end of football, because the standards are so high, is ridiculous. You're seeing clubs have managers sacked more than once a season now. It's got to crazy levels. And I think FM does try and reflect real life as much as it can.
Mm.
I do also think there is always points, and I don't know whether you two agree with me on this. There are always points within FM where I go, I want this to feel real. I want to be immersed. However, this is a game. And I also do want to have fun. And if I have built a club, like for example, let's take Slough is a great example because, you know, it's obviously the one I'm doing right now. I've been with Slough for, this will be my 11th season now that I'm going into. If I went into League One, finished rock bottom and got 6 points and they sacked me, that would be really unfair because I've built them from a club that was in the Vanarama South and, you know, built them up. However, I have really underachieved and they would have a bit of an argument to sack me, but it's a game and I don't want to get sacked. And you know what I mean? I don't know. It's a really, really tricky balance between that realism of, yeah, no, but you would get sacked. You've done really badly in there to, yeah, but you know, I've done so well. I've done so well up to now. Can you not remember that, please? Like, you know, it's really hard, isn't it? As you say, Ranieri is the fantastic example. Jurgen Klopp currently potentially might go through. I'm not saying Jurgen Klopp is going to get sacked, but you know, if he doesn't get Champions League, he's ultimately underachieved this season. Do they suddenly forget the fact he won the Premier League and he's, you know, made them the second best club in the country? Quite possibly. That is the way modern day football is nowadays. Social media and everything doesn't help, I don't think, in that situation. But yeah, I don't know. It's a funny one. Relegation, sackings, how does it work?
So here's my response to that. So I get that. I do. I understand exactly what you're saying. But let's look at other games out there because we are having that conversation about how real you want it to be compared to actually, you know, playing a game. So I've mentioned it already. This is always going to be my go-to these days. I have fallen down the deep, dark hole that is Minecraft. Love the game to bits. So here's the thought I have. There was a series that I watched on YouTube of a very, very good bunch of YouTuber Minecrafters play their life series. They start off with X amount of life and they have to try and survive. And the last person standing is considered ultimately the winner of the series. But what you're only allowed to do is you're not allowed to just go around killing everybody for the sake of it. You have to wait for certain moments where you can allowed to do certain bits, but it's not just a complete free-for-all. So it's not just fighting each other to the death and seeing what happens. But here's the thing. If you've got 3 lives and one of the other players in the right way takes one of your lives, there is a moment where you kind of go, oh, okay, that was unfortunate, but it happened. It's part of the game. Then you get the moment where you walk around a corner in a cave, in a dark cave, and nobody else around you at all. And you walk around a corner and there's this thing called a creeper, a green monster stood in front of you, and it blows up and you get hit by it. And immediately there's a skeleton behind you that fires an arrow at you and you lose a life to that. And that's really frustrating because you're supposed to be able to cope with that sort of stuff, but it's all part of the game. The simple reality about the balancing act of a game is that there are going to be frustrations because if there aren't, would we really come back to it? If you literally went, I know I can start as Slough and 15 seasons from now, I can be basically where I am, but having a lovely time and there will be no impact on me. Nobody will play. There has to be that impact. So I get it, but I also get the thought of ultimately the frustration of those moments where you think the game is against you. And that's the bit of Minecraft that I was getting to. Sometimes players kill you and that's okay because they're good and you just, you know, had a moment. Sometimes the game throws something at you in the midst of that and you think, well, that bit's unfair because I wanted to die to other people, not to them. The simple reality for me in the game is you made one error, Callum. Love you to bits. You made one error and you actually mentioned the word loyalty in the same sentence as football, and there is none. And you can't get away. You can't get around it. There is no way of getting around it. So ultimately, we get to a situation where you're a Slough, you've built them up. You're probably like a legend of the club by now or something within that echelon of who's, you know, previously been there. But all the football club now care about is we are at this point. And we now want to get to that point. Because we've been to the other points and that's all great, but that's the next step. And if you don't do it, we have to find somebody that does, because ultimately that's where we want to get to. And that's football. I don't know how you get around it. I really
You
don't.
are right. It doesn't make me like it more though.
No,
It still makes me
I am having an incredibly difficult time loving FM23 as a game. I just am. You know, we've talked a little bit about it. Love the franchise. Will always love the franchise. I will be there on day one of FM24 praying that it's better and different and fits me better more than anything else. It's not about it being a good or a bad game. It's still a good game to play in a lot of ways. For some reason, it doesn't quite fit with me this time round, and I need to change something for that for 24 maybe. But that's what I'm hoping for, is something just that, you know, I can fit into. But it's still just going to be what it is ultimately. And whatever they say, Callum, you don't have to feel tied to their opinion of you. We love you anyway.
Exactly. They, you know what? If they really want to tear down and melt the bronze statue of Callum outside Slough's ground, that's their prerogative. But I will be there protesting it, because that's who I am as a person. There we go. So, lads, I've just looked at how long we've been recording this podcast for this week. We have done some chatting.
You have.
We really have. But then again, isn't that really the point?
I kind of think it might be.
It would be a bad podcast otherwise.
Yeah, just awkward. It's just 1 hour and 8 minutes of just dead air. Excellent. Which we've avoided. We've avoided quite well. Fellas, I don't know about the two of you, but I reckon that's probably a podcast.
It felt like one, so I'm going to go with it. I'll give you this one.
Podcast, smelt like a podcast, tastes like a podcast, probably a podcast. Delicious pod, delicious, nutritious pod. Before we go, just a quick reminder: if you are listening to this on Patreon on Monday or publicly on Tuesday, then you will know that this coming Sunday, the 28th of May. Sunday the 28th of May. I'm just double checking the date. It is Sunday the 28th of May. We will be competing in FMT versus the Community 3. It's our third community draft night. If you would like to come and play with us, please do. The three of us will be there. Jeb, unfortunately, again, stupid work commitments, stupid hard-working, competent Jebaroo that people like and value his ability to do things and pay him to do those things for them. Jerks. Jeb can't make it, unfortunately, but we will be here. We've already got some fantastic members of the FM community lined up that want to come and do some drafting with us. If you would like that to be you, yes, you. I'm just talking to you now. Everybody else stop listening. You. Talking to you. Addressing you personally. Hi. Do you want to come play draft with us on Sunday night? Do you? Drop us a message. Drop us a message on Discord. Drop me a DM on Twitter. Carrier pigeons. Big banner outside my house. Whatever you want to do, let us know, and you can come do some drafting with us next Sunday evening. We're gonna have a great time, and we'd love to see you there. I think that for me, I don't know about you boys, but I think that's just nicely rounded off podcast. Before we go, though, before we wave goodbye, Callum, we'll start with you today, pal. Where can the people find you getting your slough on?
They can find me on ycallum on Twitch, ycallum_ on Twitter. Hopefully, when hearing this, I will have won a competitive ranked match, not tournament, match. That would be nice. But yeah, we'll be continuing with the Slough Madness in League One next week, where I will be continuing with our FMT pioneering of doing training, doing transfer windows on stream, trying to do the things that aren't just playing the matches. So my next stream will be a transfer window, which I'm enjoying doing. I am enjoying doing at the moment on stream, and yeah, it should be a really fun week.
Wonderful. Can't wait. Kev, what about you, pal? If people want to find you dominating Hungarian football next season and then just smashing Serbia all in the same week, where can they find you doing it?
Yeah, in my 10 hours of stream or whatever it will be this week, I'm sure I can do 2 seasons and get out of Serbia as well. Yeah, no problem at all.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Rich. Where can you find me? You can find me at the United City FM, both on Twitter and Twitch. Twitch every weekday afternoon, 3 till 5 p.m. For those of you that are normally around for it from the Patreon, we won't be doing the network game, I don't think, Monday evening. Just gone if you're listening to this on Tuesday, or just coming if you're listening to this Monday afternoon as we release it. Unfortunately, Jeb, stupid work stuff, blah, blah, blah. Grr. means that we can't do it this week, unfortunately. But we'll be back very, very soon for the beginning of season number 2 with that, I hope. So you can come and join us there. Give all the love to everybody involved in the Super League, be it competitors, be it the organisers in the likes of Murph FM, be it the other guys on the panel that I've been spending my time with this weekend. Whatever the results, they will not divide us, fellas. Come on, FMT for the win. We'll find a way somehow to win it, whatever happens. But yeah, that's where you can find me. Can I just build the two of you up just very, very slightly in real footballing terms? Everton aren't going down, Callum. It's fine. Leeds and Leicester are going down. So you'll be absolutely fine. So don't worry about that. And what on earth happened to Sheffield Wednesday, Rich? For goodness sake.
Oh yeah,
that was
How
amazing.
Have we not talked about that?
How have we not
that's not come up.
That was incredible.
Yeah, just very, very quickly before we go, I will say this, and it's going to sound like such a massive cliche, and it's going to sound like, hindsight being 2020, or you can easily say it now. I've been a Sheffield Wednesday fan for 32 years. 32 years I've followed that club. And
out of your 24 that you've lived.
Out of my 24 years. Yes, weird, isn't it? Weird somehow. Maths is hard. We covered this earlier in the podcast. But 32 years I've followed that club for. And a lot of it has been abject misery. It's been horrible. I've watched the club go through a lot on and off the pitch that have made me question. It's just one of those things. It's one of those things. Tony and Matt talked about it previously when during their 10-year-old podcast. Sometimes it's okay to normalize just, falling out of love with a football club when the football club changes that dramatically. It happened to Matt. Matt used to be a Blackburn Rovers fan, and then just significant off-field changes at the club. He was like, suddenly this is not the club that I grew up supporting, and it's okay for me to walk away from it. And Tony has had similar experiences with clubs like the Villa as well. Wednesday, I've been on the cusp so many times of going, you know what, it's time for me to just wash my hands of this football club, and then I'm not going to go and pick a new team to support. I'm just going to enjoy football without needing to worry about one team, and it affected me that dramatically. I've seen the bad and I've seen the good. When it came to Thursday night's game, when it came to Thursday night's second leg playoff, bear in mind, we're 4-0 down. 4-0 down to Peterborough after getting embarrassed in the first leg of that playoff. Normally, I'd have sat back and looked at that and gone, you know what, this is it. It's what a fitting end to the season. What a very, very Sheffield Wednesday end to that season. 96 points, favourites to go up, then just turned into experts in Pictionary because we couldn't stop drawing, and then just losing ground to other clubs, struggling. You'd expect me to just be like, you know what, it is what it is. Oh, well, we'll try again next season. Thursday morning, I just had a feeling. I was like, you know what? I'm going to see a headline tonight. I'm going to see a headline, and that headline is going to be Sheffield Wednesday pull off one of the greatest comebacks in footballing history. I was like, I can see it, and it felt and smelt real. And then it happened. It just happened. I'm so confused. 98th minute equalizer, winning on penalties, just incredible. Absolutely incredible. So that was a thing. I've been quite happy since that happened. And then I can't wait to get smashed 5-0 by Barnsley in the playoff 5 in a few weeks. Because obviously that's what will happen. So who knows? Dear. Who knows? But
it was magnificent.
Great fun. I've got to say, I really appreciate just random people in the community just getting in touch throughout the evening, be it WhatsApp groups, just on Twitter. It's like, can we just get a welfare check on Rich, please? I was just sat there like, I don't know what to say. I wanted it to happen. I had a feeling it was going to happen, but then when it was happening, I felt uncomfortable because I just don't know how to handle happiness, I think is the real crux of the issue there. I think it was really important that occasionally we just say, that football is very real to us. It can have a big impact, both positive and negatively, on mental health at times. And some of that is challenging in its way. Callum, I feel for you. I still don't think Everton are going down. I genuinely don't. But, best of luck to you for the next couple of games. Rich, have a lovely time with it till the final. We'll see what happens there. But that's football, and it's amazing what it does. By the way, Rich, where can people find you? Twitch.tv/Rich Owens FM. Scandinavian Triple Crown will be back this week.
And you're doing training, Rich. And you're doing training this week.
I'm
Remember?
doing training.
You're doing training
I'm
this
doing
week.
training with Rosenborg, where I've just accidentally fell into a new job there. So that will be back this week, where I'll be setting up a training schedule. We will be exploring the club. We'll be figuring out what we need to do to drag them out of what looks like the early stages of possible relegation fight. Who knows? I'll just turn it all around to then just win the league next season. Let's just do that. Other thing that's worth pointing out, there will be, I think I mentioned this last week, there will be, in the not too distant future, there will be a playthrough of Resident Evil 2 on my channel. First time I've ever streamed a game that isn't Football Manager. That is coming in the not too distant future. Thank you, because of generosity during my anniversary stream. People subbed, and now I have to just sit there and experience anxiety, and you can watch me experiencing it and laugh at me, because that is why we do it. So yes, twitch.tv/Rich Owens FM and at Rich Owens FM on Twitter. There we are. Done it. We've done a podcast, boys. I'm proud of us, and I'm proud of you, the audience, for just being here. You're good people. We appreciate you enormously. Thank you very much, everyone. This has been great fun. I've loved today. I've had a lovely time. On behalf of myself and the FM team, thank you very much for joining us once again for another episode of Football Manager Therapy. We will see you on the next one. Take care. Love you lots. Bye-bye.